Welcome to online class on CPC. In this class, we will discuss the topic pleadings. What is pleadings? That pleadings has been defined in Order 6, Rule 1 of the CBC. What it says? Pleadings shall mean plaint or written statement. What it says? Pleadings generally means the pleading, what the contention of a party, what are the submission of a party before the court in a civil suit. We mean these are the pleadings. So pleadings are defined in section, not in section, that is in Order 6 Rule 1. What Order 6 Rule 1 of the CPC speaks, pleadings shall mean plaint or written statement. Both plaint will be called as pleading, then the written statement is also be called as pleading. So pleading shall mean plaint or written statement. So you arrive here, so that is defined in the Civil Procedure Code. But pleadings are statements. You understand the term pleading. Pleadings are statements in writing, drawn up and filed by the parties. Those are the statements in writing. Those are drawn up and filed by the parties, each of the party, stating what is his contention in a suit. You know, a suit is instituted by presenting a plaint. The person who files the suit is called plaintiff. The person against whom a suit is filed or a relief is claimed in a suit is called defendant. So, both the parties are required to submit their contentions, submit their case in writing before the court for decision or in their respective claim. So here pleading are statements in writing. That means there cannot be a pleading orally. All pleadings must be in writing. So that's why the Order 6 Rule 1 provides that pleading means either plaint or written statement. A plaintiff's pleading is his plaint. Defendant's pleading is his written statement. So pleadings, when you say pleadings, it is either plaint or written statement. Why? What is the object? The whole object of pleading is to bring to the parties to define the issues. What is the issue to be adjudicated in a civil suit? In every civil suit, after filing of written statement of the defendant, there will be hearing on the issues, framing of issues. What is issue? Issue will come up on considering the pleadings of both plaintiff and the defendant. The facts if facts asserted by one party and the fact, if that fact is denied by the other party, thereby an issue emerges or issue comes into question. Suppose X filed a suit against Y claiming him as the adopted son of L. But Y says, no, you are not the adopted son. So, but Y says, no, I am the adopted son. In such a case, an issue will arise whether X or Y is the adopted son of L. So that's why a party is entitled to, by pleading. When a pleading is submitted before the court, the defendant should know the case of the plaintiff. Similarly, the plaintiff should know what is the defense of the defendant. The object of pleading is that parties, both the parties, should know their respective case so that they can know the issue, it will be, then thereafter they will adduce evidence to prove those issues. So here, in other words, the sole object of pleading is to ascertain the real dispute between the parties. The object of pleading is to ascertain the real dispute between the parties, to narrow down the area of conflict. Second, from the pleading, to ascertain what is the exact conflict between the parties, what is the exact dispute between the parties, to see whether two sides differ, to preclude one party from taking the other by surprise. Suppose the fact is, if it is not there in the pleading, the other side is not supposed to answer. So that will also prevent surprise to the other party regarding the facts of a particular party, which is pleaded in the case. So that's why the whole object of pleading is to bring parties to an issue. On considering the pleadings of the parties, pleadings that is either plain or written statement, considering the contentions of the parties, submission of the parties in the plain and in the written statement, issues are framed. Once issues are framed, that will be easier for the court to decide the dispute, decide the suit. Similarly, when issues are framed, parties are aware, parties are informed from the issues, what type of evidence they will adduce in a particular suit to prove their case. If it is the plaintiff, what type of evidence the plaintiff is required to prove, plaintiff should prove. That what evidence will be given, that the plaintiff will know it beforehand. By referring the pleadings, parties can know beforehand what evidence each of them will give in a suit to establish their case. So, important pleading cannot be underestimated. So, that's why pleadings provide a guide for the proper mode of the trial. People know, pleadings provides a guide for proper mode of the trial. Provisions relating to pleadings in civil cases are meant to give to each side intimation of the case of the other so that it may be met to enable courts to determine what is really at issue between the parties. So you must be conscious that what is the object of pleading. The object of pleading is the parties, neither party will be put in surprise of the case which is to be advanced by one of the other side in the court. So that's why pleadings, whatever the facts, whatever a person wants to plead, submit, either as a plaintiff or in defense in the written statement, that must be mentioned in the pleading, in the written statement or plaint. Those are called pleadings. The object of the pleadings is that from the pleadings, the dispute to be adjudicated in a suit is known to both the parties and also to the court. So here, now, there is a rule of pleading. So, Order 6, they prescribe the general rules regarding pleadings. Both, it is applicable both to plaint and written statement, because pleadings means pleading is defined either as plaint or written statement. So the entire rules of pleading as laid down in Order 6 are applicable to both to the plaint and to the written statement. Now, Order 2 says, pleadings to state material facts and not evidence. You are aware what is fact? Fact has been defined in the Evidence Act. Material facts, what is material? Which are primary to the case, which was very much required for the case. So, pleading to state all material facts. What is material facts? Material facts mean the primary facts which are to be proved in a particular case, either from the by the plaintiff or the defendant, to get a relief. So what it says, every pleading shall contain and contain only. You give importance. Contain and contain only. The legislature has repeated the word contain and contain only. Every pleading shall contain and contain only what? A statement in a concise form. Then again you should mark the word concise form. The statement in concise form of the material facts on which the pleading relies for his claim or defense, as the case may be, but not the evidence by which they are to be proved. So mark the, or just go through the provisions of order 6 rule 2. What it says? Every pleading shall contain. Pleading means here either plaint or written statement. Shall contain and contain only of material facts. That means pleading, the plaint will contain only material facts. The written statement will contain only material facts. Material facts on which the pleading relies for his claim or defense. The plaintiff pleads to get some relief. He claims some relief in a suit. Similarly, the defendant pleads in defending the plaint. So that's why every pleading, that means either plaint or written statement, shall contain and contain only what? Only material facts. What is material facts? These are the primary facts, not on that necessary facts. The unnecessary facts must not be pleaded in the pleading. Material facts only which are required, which the party pleading relies as an attack or as a claim or as a defense, as the case may be, but not the evidence by which they are to be proved. Then evidence by which a particular fact is to be proved, that need not be pleaded in the pleading. That means either in the plaint or in the written statement. Every pleading shall contain and contain only material facts in a concise form. Concise form means where precisely brevity must be maintained. It must not be in a very cumbersome, lengthy mentioning. That means every pleading must contain only material facts in a concise form and on which the plaintiff relies his plaint or pleads, and on which the defendant defends the suit, and not of law. 4 rewards you should remember. Pleadings of facts, not law. Pleading of facts, not law. What? Facts pleading, not law. Pleading will be only on facts, but not law, not of evidence. So here, pleading, either written statement or plaint, will contain only material facts and not the evidence by which those facts are to be proved. Again, those material facts must be pleaded, must be mentioned in the plaint or in the written statement concisely, with keeping brevity, not in vague manner, not in a very lengthy manner, and the reading of which is very cumbersome. That is, the legislature has made such provision. Now, every pleading shall, when necessary, be divided into paragraphs numbered consecutively, each allegations being, so far as is convenient, contained in a separate paragraph. When you write something, when a paragraph is changed, when it is mentioned in a paragraph. Each fact, a separate fact is to be mentioned in separate paragraph. So that's why it provides, sub-rule 2 provides, every pleading shall, when necessary, whenever it is required, be divided into paragraphs. That all the pleadings must not be in one paragraph. Every pleadings must be divided into paragraph, if necessary, numbered consecutively. Paragraph must be numbered. Each allegations being, so far as is convenient, contained in a separate paragraph. Each separate allegation must be in a separate paragraph. Each allegation must be pleaded in different paragraphs. So that is the sub-rule 2. Sub-rule 3 says dates, sums and number shall be expressed in a pleading in figure as well as in words. Whenever a date is pleaded, either in the plaint or in the written statement, a figure is mentioned. Figure is mentioned in the plaint or written statement, or a number is mentioned in the plaint or in the written statement, that must be mentioned with as well as in figure and also in words. Now, forms of pleading. So now, first you know what is the first rule, that all pleadings must be in concise form. Unnecessary facts should not be pleaded in the plaint or in the written statement. So it must contain only fact, not the evidence by which such fact are to be proved. Now, forms of pleadings. The form in Appendix A, when applicable, and where they are not applicable, forms of the like character, as nearly as may be, shall be used for all pleadings. If we go through the Appendix A in the Civil Procedure Code, it provides a standard form. Suppose how a plaint is to be prepared, how a written statement is to be prepared. That has been mentioned. A sample form, it has been mentioned in a form. So that form must be followed as nearly as possible. Whenever it is not required, the particular matter, particular thing which is not required, that is to be excluded, and that must be confined to mentioned in the form as provided in Appendix A. So what it says, what Appendix A says, you go through Appendix A. In the Appendix A, there are forms. What is plaint, how a plaint is to be prepared, how a written statement is to be prepared. All these things are there. So as far as possible, the plaint and written statement are to be prepared complying the manner in which it is mentioned in that form. So now rule 4 says particulars to be given when necessary. What is particulars? In all cases, when which the party pleading relies on any misrepresentation, fraud, breach of trust, willful default, or undue influence, and in all other cases in which particulars may be necessary beyond such as are exemplified in the forms aforesaid, particulars with date and items if necessary shall be stated in the pleading. What is particulars? Particulars means which amplifies the fact, which clarifies the fact, that is a particulars. Particulars whenever required, that must be mentioned. Suppose a misrepresentation is pleaded in the plaint. The manner in which that misrepresentation took place, then in such a willful default, how that willful default, some more facts which amplifies, which clarifies the main fact, that is called particulars. the detail or in some more facts, more events which will clarify the facts, that is called particulars. What it says? In all cases in which the party pleading relies on any misrepresentation. Suppose the party, either plaintiff or defendant pleads any misrepresentation or fraud, breach of trust, willful default or undue influence, and in all other cases which particulars may be necessary beyond such as are exemplified in the forms aforesaid. Forms aforesaid means in appendix A there is example where how this fraud is to be pleaded, how misrepresentation is to be pleaded, when a particulars is required to explain certain fraud, misrepresentation, etc. Those particulars shall be stated in the pleading. When particulars should be pleaded, particulars, you should know the difference between the particulars and material fact. Material facts are primary facts which must be pleaded by the parties. What? To bring to narrow down, to make the dispute narrow, so that the issues will come up. So without which the matter cannot be adjudicated. Particulars are those facts which that amplifies, which enhances, which clarifies what? The material facts. Those are particulars. For an example, there is a pleading regarding fraud. Then that it should be pleaded how that fraud took place, how that fraud occurred. These are to be pleaded in the plead. Suppose there is a misrepresentation is pleaded, in what manner that misrepresentation took place. So that must be pleaded. That is only particulars to be given when necessary. Whenever it is necessary that the particulars will clarify the material facts, those particulars must be pleaded in the plaint. Further and better, that is rule 5, it has been deleted. Now let us come to then condition precedent. Rule says condition precedent. Any condition precedent, the performance or occurrence of which is intended to be contested. If there is a condition precedent is to be pleaded or regarding which a condition is to be contested, shall be distinctly specified in the pleading. Suppose if there is a condition precedent in a particular contract or particular transfer, if it is there, that must be distinctly specified in the pleading by the plaintiff or defendant, as the case may be, and subject thereto an averment of the performance or occurrence of all condition precedent necessary for the case. Suppose the condition precedent had been performed by the plaintiff or the defendant in a contract, that fact may be pleaded in the pleading, either in the plaint or in the written statement. What the rule 6 says, any condition precedent, the performance or occurrence of which is intended to be contested. Particular condition precedent or performance of a particular occurrence that is intended to be contested in a suit. So in such case, that and subject thereto an averment of the performance, then averment must be, averment means what? Stating in the plaint or written statement averments of the performance or occurrence of all conditions precedent necessary for the case of the plaintiff or defendant shall be implied in his pleading. Now rule 7, no pleading shall, except by way of amendment, raise any new ground. It is the most important rule in every civil case, civil dispute. Parties cannot go beyond their pleadings. The parties cannot introduce a new case departing their pleadings. So what that rule 7 provides, no pleading shall, except by amendment. Yes, new pleading may be introduced in a suit, that can be done only by amendment. by amending the plaint or written statement. The Order 6 Rule 7 provides, no pleading shall except by way of amendment. If new pleading can be introduced, can be brought to the suit by amendment. So that's why it provides, no pleading shall except by way of amendment raise any new ground of claim or contain any allegation of fact inconsistent with the previous pleading of the party pleading the same. That is, a new pleading which is inconsistent with the previous pleading, that cannot be introduced in a case, that cannot be taken in a case, but that can be taken by amending the plaint. Amending the plaint. If the court permits the amendment of the plaint or written statement, then such new pleading, if that is inconsistent with the earlier pleading, that can be taken. So what it says? No pleading shall, except by amendment, raise any new ground. A new pleading that will not raise any new ground of claim or contain any allegation of fact inconsistent with the previous pleading. Inconsistent. If it is consistent with the previous pleading, okay, that this Rule 7 is not applicable. Suppose a new pleading is introduced that is inconsistent, that goes against the previous pleading. Suppose in the previously the plaintiff had stated something, say by a particular fact. Now he wants to depart from it by introducing a new pleading. He cannot do so. Only such a new pleading can be introduced by amendment of the plaint with the permission of the court. So what's Order 6 Rule 7 says? No pleading shall, except by amendment, raise any new ground of claim or contain any allegation of fact inconsistent with the previous pleading of the party pleading this. So this is applicable only to the plaint. That is, there new pleading which is inconsistent to the pleading in the plaint, that cannot be taken. That cannot be taken, but the same can be taken only by amending the plaint. Then, denial of contract. Where a contract is alleged in any pleading, a bare denial of the same by the opposite party shall be construed only as a denial of fact of the express contract alleged, or a matter of fact from which the same may be implied, and not as a denial of legality or sufficiency in law of such contract. So what it says, when a contract is to be denied, the defendant must not deny it in a what? In a evasive manner. What it says? Where a contract is alleged in any pleading, a bare denial, only denial. Suppose plaintiff has filed a suit for relation of certain money basing on a promissory note against the defendant. Defendant simply denies the contract. So that denial is not sufficient. If such a denial is there, it shall be construed only as a denial of fact of the express contract alleged, fact, or of the matters of fact from which the same may be implied, and not as a denial of the legality. So legality of the contract is not denied, or sufficiency in law of such contract. That means only fact is denied, that he has not entered a contract. Thereby, if he simply barely somebody denies that there is no such contract, only from that denial it will be construed that he had denied the only fact of entering contract. Thereby, he does not deny the legality of the contract. If ultimately it is found that prove that he had entered a contract, then he cannot again say that contract was not lawful, that contract was not legally enforceable. Because bare denial, by making bare denial, here the defendant omits to deny the legality of the contract. Legality of the contract. When there is a pleading of a contract in the plaint, and the other side denies, only bare denies, no, there is no such contract. That means thereby he doesn't deny the legality of that contract. If ultimately it is found that he had entered a contract, then it is to be presumed the court will hold that the contract was lawful. Now, effect of document to be stated. Whenever the contents of any document are material, it shall be sufficient in any pleading to state the effect thereof as briefly as possible, without stating out the whole or any part thereof, unless the precise words of the document or any part thereof are material. So, when a document is to be, the fact of existence of a document is pleaded either in the plaint or in the written statement. So, in such case, it shall be sufficient in any pleading to state the effect there as briefly as possible. What is the effect of that document? As briefly as possible, that is to be mentioned. That document need not be in detail, must be pleaded in the plaint or written statement. So, without stating out the whole or any part thereof, without stating the whole or the entire or any part of that document, the effect of that document is to be pleaded. Suppose somebody plaintiff files a suit relying on a sale deed. He will only plead that I have purchased it, and by virtue of such sale I got the ownership, I became the owner. It is not necessary for the plaintiff to plead the entire document in that plaint or a part of that document in the plaint, unless a particular part is in dispute. Malice, knowledge, etc., wherever it is material to allege malice, evil intention, fraudulent intention, knowledge, or other condition of the mind, whenever it is a malice is pleaded, what then the other condition of mind? Condition of mind means what? That is malice, knowledge, fraudulent intention, or other condition of the mind of any person is pleaded. It shall be sufficient to allege the same as a fact without setting out the circumstances from which the same is to be inferred. From the circumstances, the same is to be inferred. In one interesting case, this insurance company filed a suit against a particular person that his claim of insurance money was a fraudulent, or that he was not entitled because there was a condition in insurance policy that if that the person who is insured, he commits suicide, then the legal heirs will not get the insurance money. The insurance company pleaded that the person whose life was insured, he committed suicide intentionally, with a knowledge, with an intention that if he will commit suicide, then his legal heirs will get the insurance money. So in such suit, it is not necessary for the insurance company to plead that prior to committing suicide, that the person had purchased poison, he attempted previously on 2 occasions to commit suicide. Those facts need not be pleaded. So what? Only the malice, knowledge, etc. must be pleaded, but the manner in which, from which the circumstances from which such malice, knowledge, or other mental condition is to be inferred, those facts need not be pleaded. Notice. Now, Rule 11 says, whenever it is material to allege notice to any person of any fact, that is, it is to be pleaded in the plaint or written statement that any person had notice of any fact, matter of or thing it shall be sufficient to allege such notice as a fact unless the form or the precise form of such notice or the circumstances from which such notice is to be inferred are material. So simply it is necessary only to plead that somebody has notice. It is not necessary to plead how that it must be inferred that he had notice. In the form in which such a notice is mentioned, it is not unless such materials are necessary. Implied contract or relation. Whenever any contract or any relation between any person is to be implied from a series of letters, conversation, or otherwise from a number of circumstances, whenever it is to be implied that there is a contract between two parties, what is the relation between the parties because of these various letters between them, it shall be sufficient to allege such contract or relation as a fact and to refer generally to such letters, conversation or circumstances without setting them out in detail. And if in such a case the person so pleading desires to rely in the alternative upon more contracts or relation that one has to be implied from such circumstances, he may state the same in the alternative. So what it says? What is alternate pleading? Suppose a person files a suit. He may take alternate pleading, or he cannot take inconsistent pleading. Pleading some fact, and again in the second paragraph he is pleading something which is against the previous pleading. So that is called inconsistent pleading. Alternate pleading can be taken. For an example, suppose X files a suit to declare his right title and possession on a piece of land basing on a sale deed. In the same suit he can plead that in alternate he has acquired title over the suit land by adverse possession. Such an alternate pleading can be taken. Similar, but inconsistent pleading cannot be taken either in the plead or in the written statement. So here the rule says implied contract or relation. So whether there is an implied contract or implied relation, this fact only be pleaded. And if some letters prior to that, how there is an implied contract, how there is implied relationship, that need not be pleaded unless that matter is in a issue in the case. Or similarly, there may be pleading by parties as alternative upon more contracts. As an implied contract in alternate pleading may be there regarding other contracts, then one has to be implied from such circumstances, he may take the same in the alternative. Now the rule 13 says, presumption of law. Neither party need in any pleading allege any matter of fact which the law presumes in his favor. When there is a presumption of a fact, as per the provisions of the Evidence Act, the parties need not plead that a particular fact is to presume as per law, or as to which the burden of proof lies. Similarly, neither party will plead in the pleading the burden of proof on whom lies to prove a particular fact, where the same has first been specifically denied. So here, unless the same has been specifically denied, suppose there is a contract, the other party says there was no consideration. So in such case that can be brought, or on the bill and not for the consideration as a substantive ground of claim. What it says? That presumption of law. If neither party need in any pleading allege any matter of fact which the law presumes in his favor. If a particular fact is to be presumed as per law, as per the provisions of Evidence Act, neither party is is required to plead in the pleading, or as to which the burden of proof lies upon the other side, unless the same has first been specifically denied. If that has been denied specifically, then that can be pleaded. Suppose consideration for a bill of exchange. In a bill of exchange, what is that? When there is a bill of exchange, there is, the court presumes that there is a valid consideration. If the consideration, the fact is denied, then that fact may be pleaded. That burden may be pleaded. So here, and not for the consideration as a substantial ground of claim. So now, this Rule 14 says, every pleading shall be signed by the party and his pleader, if any. So that means both written statement or the plaint and the plaint must be signed by the parties. Plaintiff must sign the plaint, and his advocate is there, he will sign it. Similarly, the defendant will sign the written statement, and if he has engaged any advocate, he will sign it. Provided that where a party pleading it by reason of absence or for other ground, other good cause, unable to sign the pleading, it may be signed by any person duly authorized by him to sign the same or to sue or defend on his behalf. What Order 6 Rule 14 provides? That every pleading must be signed by the parties or and by their pleader. If any of the party is unable to sign because of illness, etc., for sufficient reason, any other person who has been authorized by that person to sign the pleading, to appear on his behalf through a power of attorney, a special power of attorney, he may sign that pleading. Now, let us conclude this session here. In the next class, we will discuss the other provisions of the pleadings as provided in Order 6 of the Civil Procedure Code. Thank you all.